You ready? Today we're going to be talking about what to do when you're stuck and how to get unstuck. The most important skill set, in my opinion, to getting unstuck is learning how to differentiate between the urgent and important. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Early on, when I first started Carpe Diem cleaning, I had started hiring employees, and I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a visionary. I see potential, so found this employee. He was the golden child at our church. He was going to come and revolutionize my company, and I was so excited. Wow, he's going to come work for me. In the meantime, and many of you know this, when you first start a business, you take clients that you may not take as you get older. And I had one of those clients, and I call her Miss Grumpy Drawers, that no matter what we do, it's not right. But I needed money, she needed her house clean, she was our client. And so one day after cleaning Grumpy Drawers' house around 7:03 p.m., I looked down at my phone and there she is calling me. You know it's not good when a customer's calling you like right after you've performed a service. So I took that deep breath, picked up, hello, Wendy? Why is there a plunger on my living room carpet? And my heart sunk. Why was there a plunger on her living room carpet? All I could do was apologize and say, I'm so sorry. I'm going to look into this. Whatever I needed to just say. And I felt truly, but to end that call. So I began to investigate. And lo and behold, it was my golden boy employee. He's like, oh, I was chasing other employees around and I forgot to put it back. My heart sunk. And it was in that moment that I came to a valley of decision. I'd started the business and had this idealistic choice that I was going to make. And this is where the rubber met the road. And I had a choice of, if I was cleaning myself, I would never have had to deal with the embarrassment or the shame of that phone call. I wouldn't have to deal with having to fire someone. I wouldn't have had to deal with my own disappointment of not hiring well. And truthfully, at that point, I could have made more money cleaning houses myself. And though I wasn't planning on being in the valley of decision at that moment, I was. And the choices that I made in that moment were pivotal to where I am today. The reason I share that story with you is that I want to share some of the skills that I learned around decision making in that moment that helped me get unstuck. And today you may be stuck, and this message is for you, and these are tools to help you in your circumstance. Or today, life might be firing on all 4 cylinders, and you're doing well, and you're going down the road of life, and at some moment, you're probably going to get stuck there too. And so you can use these tools for when you're in those moments as well. So today we're going to talk about first, why do we get stuck? And then we're going to talk about how to get unstuck. And then we're going to talk about practically how you integrate the how. So put your seatbelts on and come with me on this adventure. So why do people get stuck? I think it's part of our mindset of we don't know what to do. We're in that valley of decision and we're wrestling. And it's what I love to call the tension of the 2 truths. Niels Bohr is a famous physicist, and he said the opposite of a fact is a lie. And the opposite of a profound truth is another profound truth. And the easiest way to demonstrate that is if you were married to a Jewish spouse in Germany during World War II and the Gestapo's at your door, do you prioritize honesty or loyalty? If you prioritize honesty, you'll incur the sin of loyalty and betray. If you prioritize loyalty, you'll incur the sin of honesty and lie. And the reality is, honesty and loyalty are 2 great things. Prioritize them matters. As I've studied this in business, because in business, as you're growing, as I say, it's easy to be poor. You pay to power and you take a little money and get your nails done, and that's about it. Not a lot of decision making. But as you begin growing your business, where do you invest? Do you invest in people? Do you invest in marketing? Do you invest in your personal life? Do you invest in operations or systems or inventory? Like, there's two good things that you are prioritizing. And as I've studied this principle, I fundamentally believe there's actually only two profound truths. And for those of you that don't know me well, I love science. I think science is absolutely fascinating, and I love light. And as I've studied light, one of the basic principles of light is both a wave and a particle. And you have to have both to have light. One of the profound truths of light is the wave. It is the feminine, it is the color, it is the right brain, the artistic, the nonprofit, the community. And then you have the particle part of light, the structure, the black and white, the for-profit, the linear, the masculine, the left brain. We need both. And the two truths about the two truths is that you need both to have light, and how you prioritize wave and particle matters in those moments. If you plant a corn seed, if you plant the particle, you will get a corn plant. If you plant the blueberry seed, you will get a blueberry plant. Depending on which one you prioritize, you're going to have different consequences, both good and bad. I use this with my son all the time. And if you plant the blueberry seed, you got to get acid in the soil, you got to have a certain amount of sunlight. And so you need both particles and waves, and you need different amounts of them in different times, and it matters. So you're like, okay, that's a great theory, Wendy. What does that have to do with getting unstuck? Well, I want to talk to you about two truths today and learning how to prioritize them. And it comes out of time management. And the two truths are urgent and important. Ben Franklin says, "Does thou lovest life, then do not squander time, for that is the stuff that life is made from." And time is made up, and our prioritization of time is made up of urgent and important. And as you study this, there's actually a quadrant called the Eisenhower matrix that explains urgent and important. The first quadrant, quadrant 1, is highly urgent and highly important. This is, you break your arm, you've got to go to the hospital, it's urgent of you've got to get it done today. It's important of if you're in significant pain. It's in business, it's the client work. If we do not clean houses today, we don't get paid. We do not have a business. It is the work that has to get done today, and it is important. Then there's quadrant 2, and it is low importance and high urgent, or high important, low urgent. And this is the things in life that are important but aren't necessarily urgent. This week, I took my minivan in for maintenance and got the timing belt. Does it matter whether I got the timing belt done today or next week or the week after? No. And I'm doing a before and after picture. It looks the same. But it is important because it means that I'm not going to get stranded when I go on a road trip with my kids. And I was sharing this with my nanny sister, and she has a friend who has the same minivan, and they got broken down. And so it's important of maintaining your vehicle, but it's not urgent of, I have no emotional value for taking the timing belt and the spark plugs, but I was out a lot of money. And it was not urgent today. And then there's quadrant 3, which is high urgent and low importance in the moment. And so the way I demonstrate that was years ago, our debit cards routinely got hacked. And it was one of those mornings, our debit card got hacked, and a hacked card feels both urgent and important. And so I called the bank to cancel and to report this, and they said, it's 11:53 a.m., your estimated hold time is 15 minutes, and I had a meeting at noon. So again, I'm in this valley of decision where I'm stuck. What do I prioritize? And the card felt really important at that moment, But the reality is, whether I called at noon or 2, I wasn't going to get any different results, and I had people waiting for me in a meeting whose times were valuable and who we needed to have that meeting. So I hung up the phone, went to the meeting, came back at 2, called the bank, and lo and behold, it really didn't matter because they were pending, and I could have called the next day. Highly urgent, but not necessarily important in the moment. And then there's quadrant 4, which is low urgent and low important. I'm killing time, I'm doing nothing. It's not that you're not watching TV or not resting, it's that you're not being intentional about your rest or taking time to rewind or to watch that show. Maybe you watched that show and then you kept on watching that which you were not planning. What the studies have shown is the majority of our time we spend in quadrant 1, 3, and 4, but where our future lies is in quadrant 2, where we're working on the business, where we're doing the exercise, we're prioritizing sleeping, we're prioritizing maintaining the car, building the systems. And when I heard this, I was like, I am not going to spend the least amount of my time in the quadrant that will make the most amount of difference. And so I began transferring my time budgets to say, how do I spend time in quadrant 2? And there's really 2 word plays that can help you process, do you prioritize urgent or important? The first one is care versus cure. An ounce of care is worth a pound of cure. How are we prioritizing care? And the second one is to choose or I have to. I have to pay my mortgage. Well, no, you don't. The only thing we have to do someday is die. Other than that, there really isn't anything we have to do. I choose to pay my mortgage. I am delighted that I have a mortgage. I am delighted that I have a home. I am grateful. I choose to work. I choose to love my kids. I choose to change poopy diapers because it means that I have children that are healthy and their digestive tract is working. So as we go, pee-oo, I'm like, thank you for your healthy digestive tract. There's nothing that we have to do. We fundamentally choose to do. And you're like, okay, great. That's great, Wendy. I appreciate it. But can you help me get a little bit more practical? Thanks for asking. Sure, I'd love to. If we were going to prioritize quadrant 2 in our mindset, our time, our money, our energy, and every part of our life, what would be the one thing around that? The most important rock of the important quadrant is your relationship with yourself. When you get on a plane and they say, in case of emergency and the oxygen mask come down, you are to put your own oxygen mask on and then put on the oxygen mask of the person next to you. And what was fascinating to me is when I had young kids, is the attendant would come up to me and make me commit, because she knows I wouldn't do it otherwise, that will I commit to putting on my own oxygen mask first? And the answer is yes, because they know if they don't get you to commit to putting on your own oxygen mask, that you won't do it in the case of emergency. And that is the right prioritization of learning how to take care of ourselves. There is a quote that says, I have met the enemy, and she is me. Relationship is our relationship with ourselves. And for those of us who love to give, who want to serve and help the world and are generous with who we are, this is very counterintuitive. It doesn't have the emotional reward and cues that the urgent does. And yet I'm here to tell you, when you are stuck, when you are unclear, the key thing to do is to prioritize your relationship with yourself and say, how can I get that healthy? And so you may be saying, great, Wendy, I agree with you, but how do I do that? And the first thing I would recommend is you schedule regular meetings with yourself. You schedule that in your time. You treat yourself like you would treat your BFF or your boss or whoever's important in your life that you routinely meet with. And take that time to spend time meeting with yourself. And you're like, okay, I can agree with that. But then what do I talk to myself about? Thanks for asking. If you would like to email me, I would be happy to send you an agenda for your first meeting with yourself. My email is wendy@durhamexchange.org. So if you can email me, I'd be happy to send you the agenda for your first meeting with yourself. So this is great. Why don't people do this? We've talked about the why. It's the mindset of prioritization of two truths. It is the how, learning how to differentiate between urgent and important. It is the practical of prioritizing time with you. Why don't we do this? Because it doesn't have the same emotional cues as the urgent and the day-to-day. And so I had that little question inside of myself of, does this really work? And is this really the one thing? Is this really the one thing that's worth your time to be? I'd like to end with a story for you. Last summer on July 10th, my son had turned 8 on July 3rd, and he was part of the All-Stars baseball team, and we were headed to Wilson, North Carolina, which is about an hour and a half from Durham. And on the way to this baseball game, it was a cloudy, misty Sunday morning. I was like, man, I'm so glad we don't have to worry about a shooting. And we were there sitting, we had just gone up to bat, we had just finished fielding, the kids were going into bat, it was machine pitch, our coaches were getting out there. Victor had been the pitcher in that season, had just come off. And all of a sudden you hear this noise. Bam, bam, bam. I didn't know what it was. And all of a sudden you hear shots. All the kids were on the baseball field. Our kids were down in the dugout in the mud, face down. One of Victor's teammates knew what was going on, and he's crying, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And in that moment, I had to make some decisions. I was in the valley of decision, not for my own doing, of what do I do these next few minutes when someone comes and my kid is in harm's way. And I decided, you know what? I am going to prioritize whatever I need to do to protect my son, and I need to be okay with dying today. So I went through this habit. I went through my quadrant 2. Am I ready to die today? Because if I am not confident, then I will die in vain and I will not protect my son. And confidence is needed when you are in those quadrant 1 moments. And so I went through my list. Had I prioritized that which was important to me? And you have a few seconds, even though it feels like your life is before your eyes. And I went through that week and I had told everyone that I loved them who were valuable to me. I had spent time with my relationships and had invested well. I had my will in place. I had my life insurance in place, not just for my kids, but for my businesses, because my team, I don't want their lives to suffer just because it's my time to go. I'd written out my heart for my children. And I really didn't want to die because I still have big dreams. I still have big goals. I'm all about the long term. And if this outside of my choice was my day, I was at peace with my maker and I was at peace with my life. And I had the freedom to be fully present to do what I needed to do for my son because I'd prioritized quadrant 2 living for decades. And after those few minutes, fortunately, one of the other parents, he had a conceal and carry. He had army crawled to the pitcher's mound. It was in that moment I'd be okay. And come to find out later it was someone that was on the baseball field there. And 2 of the bullets landed in the back of my van. My minivan that gets maintained got on Fox News. It was a little bit messier than I wanted it to be. The stroller for my daughter had the bullet in the wheel. Like, one of the bullets landed less than 10 feet from one of the other kids on the field. Like, I'm so grateful, y'all, to be here today, to talk about this, and to say no one died. But we don't know when those valleys of decisions come. And I can confidently share with you today that this skill set will equip you when you're stuck, or when you're stuck and you weren't prepared to be stuck. So thank you for taking time to listen. Thank you.